You're joking. Not another one?
Hello, it's the Not Another HR podcast again.
It is. What a surprise.
It is.
Hopefully you knew that if you were here.
I would hope so, but I've got cognitive decline.
We welcome people who stumble across us, you know. Even if you didn't know this is what you're in for, welcome. We'd love to have you.
There is a lot of people who come to for one reason, find benefit through other means, which sounds a bit weird. But then I think most people would admit I'm a bit weird, to be fair.
No comment.
Thank you. Yes, appreciate your solidarity. That's fabulous
always.
of you.
I'm just here for you.
Cheers, mate. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Actually, I was having lunch with there's a business coach who one took offence at our dig at Huel drinkers. As he took a swig of his Huel, and then he says the only reason I like your podcast is because you make something that's on the absolute periphery of any interest that I have interesting.
I think that's a compliment.
It is somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah. I was absolutely just kind of floundering through that to kind of go like, yeah.
Thank you.
So you do actually like me. So I was like, all right, cheers, mate. Ian, you know who you are, and yes, I've name checked you.
But in terms of, you've shouted out Ian, but who are we?
Who are we? Oh, sorry, that's a very good point. And this isn't legal advice either. This is general advice of two people. So if you actually do have a proper issue, go and take the proper structured indemnified advice. Or insured advice, should I say.
I love it when we cover the T's and C's. And this is correct at the time of recording.
Yes, that's the other one.
Thanks.
So I'm Alastair from Easy HR, founder.
I'm Rachel Rigg from Horsfield Menzies, an employment solicitor.
So I was going to say it's kind of gone quiet out there, but it's kind of, what have you been up to actually? What have you been doing?
So I was in court yesterday enforcing restrictive covenants. I know, but we got our cost award yesterday. So, you know, the client will be Scrooge McDucking into a series of pound coins at some point in the next 20 days. So that's very exciting. But other than that, just kind of lots of redundancies going on in the market and lots of people refusing to come back to work and using reasonable adjustments in a very vague sense to do that. I won't come to meetings. You can't do any processes with me. I've got IBS, I've got ADHD, I've got whatever, and I can't possibly be expected to attend.
Yes, and I think use your occupational health partner in that is very important. Yeah. It's massive. You've got to make sure you're the right person. That's really interesting because we're seeing a bit of the non-return piece and. Because again, as a friend, sort of grew up, a friend of mine was quite heavily disabled, and he kind of never put that as a limitation on him. And it's interesting, you kind of meet certain people and they've got tennis elbow, and you think,
and they're lying down in the street.
Yeah, you kind of go like, what? It's like, what's going on?
You know, everyone's got their challenges, but you know, perspective is good.
You kind of go. But I do think there's. We're referring people to occupational health at a rate of knots at the minute.
Isn't it insane?
It's absolutely crazy, but it's not letting up either.
No.
And it's, I think I was actually with someone the other week and they're saying like, "Ooh, bloody kids these days." And I said, like, we are just a bunch of miserable bastards that were there when we were coming through as well. But there is the bit where I think I used to see this kind of in the industrial environments that I was in. Mm-hmm. So I worked for Hovis years ago, and we used to have loads of people that come through like Baker's Lung, kind of RSI stuff, and there was a massive personal injury kind of culture in that space. I think it's just manifesting it. We're seeing those similar types of characters coming through because we've got less, or it feels like we've got less of those industrial environments that just manifest themselves in different ways. Yeah,
but isn't it interesting as well, because there's been a bit of a shift where people are more willing to go to the doctor about things. You know, we're in a different culture now as a whole.
Yeah.
If you think about blokes going to a GP, which used to be something that would never happen.
Excuse me.
I mean, there's some sweeping statements right there. It's a well-known phenomenon that, like, women, especially for a myriad of, you know, female-related reasons, might go to the doctor more regularly. And so men, it has to be like my arm's fallen off to be able to actually be like, oh, you know what, I'll go and speak to a GP about this.
I'll go see a physio, but I won't go see a GP.
Yeah. And so like now, but there seems to be a real shift where, you know, GPs are really busy. I wonder why.
Oh, did you? Because there was a bit that came out in the news about sorting out sick notes, which I kind of caught a bit off. Which
what, as in like, don't just give them for everything?
No.
Everything, or
so rather than to get away from the backlog in GPs,
right?
So if you get a work sick note, they're going to hand you over to like a social care person. So it's going to go to like health and social. Yeah.
So immediately then, there isn't actually a medical like reason or adjustment suggested in a sick note that can help an employer understand what they need to do.
I need to see the full details, but I think it's the whole piece of it's that great announcement that with this current government isn't particularly well communicated, that then won't happen anyway, because it's the fact that it'll just get weighed down by bureaucracy.
Of course, we love bureaucracy.
Yeah,
this is what we do.
It's like, it was like with the retraining fund for the over 50s. It was in a few years ago. It's like, I'm sure that's still this. I'm sure there's like a white paper still like knocking around, just
floating about.
Yeah,
like, look at me.
It's there'll be something in one of the buildings where someone's going, yes, I'm going to make this happen.
It's time.
Yes, it's like, we have a white paper. So yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah. So no, that's kind of a lot of our world. The other thing that we're seeing at the minute, I was like, I've just kind of recorded the update for kind of our newsletter prior to this. Drop me a link, drop me a note if you want to be on that. But I was talking on that about how we saw a lot of administrations earlier in the year, smaller businesses, probably sort of 10, 20 heads.
Yeah.
And there was an organised kind of close down. We're seeing bigger businesses starting to fall now. There's a real sense of actually businesses that are probably 100 plus that we're in our kind of world who've probably potentially kind of over leveraged or kind of found themselves in a bit of a tricky position. But it's that kind of, with that one going, that's now having really detrimental effects. And we've seen a couple where they're looking at either a full up, either administration of the complete business or a division of the business. But then you can see the impact. We've seen other businesses do major restructures, and that's because a business has just gone, and it's just gone to full administration at that point. And I think there's going to be these things just collapsing sort of here and there, and that's going to be a real tricky summer.
We're at a kind of rocky patch, aren't we? I think people have struggled to accommodate the changes over the last sort of 18 months we've talked about before, about like the cost of living, the cost of doing business, you know, things like national insurance going up overnight when the Labour government came in. There's people who managed to kind of ride it out at the time that are now feeling the pinch.
Yeah, but the way I've described it is like it's layering of issues, and things were tough before COVID, and not. It feels weird sort of going, you know, because of COVID, but it's not, and it's that bit where you had that kind of the market change for an awful lot of people in that period of time. You then layer on like national insurance changes, you layer on the increase in salaries, energy rates, like this morning, like the announced energy rates for domestic is going to go up another 200 quid. Let's even talk about commercial rates. You've then got layer on extra bureaucracy, people feel like got less wriggle room. We've got a few clients that operate in the space of kind of just helping businesses with exits, and you know, the businesses aren't looking for investment, they're looking for ways out. And these are people that have made the money, and they're going, you know what, even if I sell my business for £1, I'm happy that it's gone. And I don't want that pain of owning a business anymore.
Oh gosh.
It's a real tricky space at the minute. So, and even in a trickier space, HR teams.
That was a good segue.
I impressed myself. Thank you very much. So, Bolt in the US have come out and said that what was the quote? That HR teams created more issues. Than they.
So that if you get rid of HR, you get rid of HR issues.
Yeah.
Effectively. Yeah,
which is, I don't know. We because this reminds me very much of the stuff we saw with Octopus Energy a couple of years ago, where the guy says, you know, he doesn't have central functions, and in truth, which is complete bollocks, because he does. Yeah.
You're just shifting where the function sits. You're not there. It's not to say that any of these businesses don't have HR.
Yes.
It's just dealt with
in a different way. And I think that does. I've seen more. I don't know whether it's just my algorithm, but I'm seeing more and more at the minute. We're kind of the broadsheets are coming after HR as what on earth do they provide? Like there there was a bit in CAM and in the Times where, was it 10 billion that he thinks that takes out the economy?
And they compare it to Europe and all the rest of it, but the reality is that Europe, most of European employment law practices include things like works councils. There are different structures already that exist in those formats that carry a lot of the weight of what the UK has in a HR department.
Yeah.
So it's not really comparable.
No, but I also think, and this is the bit where I've sometimes struggled to get on with the HR people, Kel surprise, is also about kind of like some my frustration with that. You'll meet a lot of HR professionals who'll go, "Oh, we want a seat at the top table."
Yeah.
To which my response is, "What on earth is the top table?" And actually, kind of, what is it, Captain Birdseye's table? You know, do you want some fish fingers? Yeah. But when you get into that level of discussion with them about what that top table is, they don't understand what that means.
So this is the thing, is that like when you're looking at, we'll just get rid of HR, there will be businesses where HR is not working for them, and it is reactive, and it is nervous, and it is not commercial. And so you get wrapped up into just dealing with things that are being sent to you. But HR can be truly strategic, like purely part of the whole firm's direction, what you're trying to achieve. Your HR strategy needs to sit alongside that. And if you're not showing up in that strategic way, you know, having a seat at that table is a bit of an ask.
But I also think this. I get frustrated with the strategy word because everyone wants a strategy. Everyone wants a docket, like a nice slide deck. It's like, hey guys. Yeah. Whereas actually, my argument is there's a plan. Mm-hmm. It's that we get from A to B, which I appreciate is a strategy as well in the same breath.
Rebrand strategies just for you.
Yeah. Easy strategies, a plan. But it is this thing where people overthink it. Mm-hmm. They don't. For me, they look at things in the wrong way, and they put HR or kind of their department at the centre of it, rather than actually. I used to talk about kind of the teams I manage internally. Is like we need to be like a membrane around a business. Mm. So actually, kind of what you would do is that you would adjust kind of who you are and what you did to actually the size of the business and what the business needs. You know what I mean? So rather than it being this kind of immovable, people kind of try and create this immovable kind of ring that goes, HR will protect you. I like to think we're a bit more kind of fluid and sort of a bit more kind of Teflonish, and we can move with you. But that's the thing. But I also think that the good employment lawyers and the good HR people I deal with are the ones that will sit down with a client and sort of will say to someone, where do you want to land with this? Because actually, I've dealt with a huge amount of solicitors who can tell me what the Employment Relations Act is, and sort of the relevant regulations. And we've had we did a closure of a big site a few years ago, and the letters that we got from the solicitors were technically brilliant, but I had a 16-year-old kid who was autistic that needed to read the letter and understand it and then respond to it. And my point was like, it's with whatever you do. Mm. It can be right and wrong at the same time. Yeah. And just because it's not a legal kind of masterclass in what you do doesn't take away from it. It's about wild. Kind of how are you engaging people? What do you want them to gauge? Yeah. What are you communicating? What you do, and what's the impact of the behaviour, or what's the impact of what you want to do? So how do you want people to think, feel, and do as a consequence? Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people in this day and age have lost that.
I'd also say that there's a bureaucracy that comes with HR sometimes, where people are nervous to get something wrong because the stakes feel high, right? If you mess up in HR and you end up in employment tribunal and awards are being threatened against a business, etc., then you can feel a bit nervous. But the reality is that you can navigate something like reasonable adjustments and try and do your best job there, and in doing that, do something where you are talking about a protected characteristic and you end up harassing someone. I was kind of thinking on my way over to today, being like, is it actually possible as a HR person to be truly compliant with every single law? Tackling any of these issues, you can fall into little, not traps is too big a word, but you can fall into unexpected territory. And it's basically, you can't be just truly, completely compliant.
You can't service everything.
No.
And it's picking your poison to a large extent.
And so it's like, okay, like you say, where do we want to get to? What's the right path for us? Might not necessarily, I'm not saying depart from the law entirely, but have it in mind, but you still need to move forward.
But to your point, some people are just motivated to get themselves into a tribunal situation.
Totally.
Whether that's to get a payment or whether that is to...
have their day in court,
And it's, for me, it's the bit where... And I think this is probably a lot of people, their definition of success is going, I've not been to tribunal.
Yeah.
And it's like, but you've got to look at kind of who your world is. And actually, if you're trying to avoid tribunal, are you actually missing the point of the situation? Yeah. And actually, sometimes you've got to I describe it, there's a difference between walking onto a punch and running onto a punch. Mm-hmm. So if you know that person's going to go to tribunal, you've got to accept that reality, because
they're totally in charge of that decision. You can't do anything about it.
But then it's the bit where, rather than rushing through it, it's the bit where you go, right, so how do we proactively manage this process?
Yeah.
So actually, we've painted the best picture that we can. So actually, if it were to go a bit awry, we're okay at that point.
Yeah.
So no.
It's one of those, but it's that point about getting rid of HR as well. Suddenly getting rid of your employee relations issues. They've either just been shifted to your managers, or you're not collecting the information, so you're not seeing what's happening.
Yeah, but I think the key in all of this is about making sure that it actually works for you. It is useful. It is useful because I do it. So, but it's more just. Think about it more proactively, get on top of it, and then just being absolutely, I think you're good at that point.
Sounds good. So reasonable adjustments then?
Do you think I need some?
Probably. I think we're both probably candidates.
Yeah.
When today's society, yeah, definitely. Everyone can have one.
Right,
have what you like.
Right there, Nigel.
We're having a really hard time with people who say they want adjustments to navigate things, but won't give you any medical information or go to occupational health.
Yes.
This is my little Venn diagram crossover at this point, where it's like, okay, right.
See, this is we had an exchange with someone last year, and they'd had a fairly serious accident, and I was requesting information. I was requesting their consent, which they initially asked for, which they then refused. I then said, well, we're going to have to work with what we've got at this moment in time. He then said we weren't taking it seriously enough, and that under ACAS regulations we needed to get an occupational health report, which I would, that's what I was asking.
But you have to go.
That's what I was asking before.
You have to go.
But he wouldn't even sign for consent to begin with.
Yeah.
And we got there in the end, but it was tough going to get there.
It's hard.
But I think there was it you I was having a conversation with a while ago? I think we had a claim, and there was a whole conversation around about the definition of what a disability is and what reasonable adjustments are. And unfortunately, over time, it's become more and more opaque about what it is. Well,
also, look, the legal test is 16 years old. Things have changed so much in that time. People, we've talked before about the fact, we talked about it in our last episode, about ADHD. Everything is attached to ADHD at the minute. And the thing is, for disability, which makes it really difficult for employers, is it doesn't matter if there is a diagnosis. It doesn't matter if you know about it. If someone is telling you they have ADHD symptoms, that could be enough for you to have to make adjustments.
But I think the other part of this as well was also about stress and anxiety that we're seeing in the workplace.
Yeah, huge.
Because the other bit is the definition of what we class as disability. Because again, it's to your point, if you've got people that are going off, you've not done your return to work, so you've not been sort of suitably curious. Yeah, is my favourite phrase in everything. Then actually, if you then do a short service dismissal, you do something to someone, and it's a trigger to their anxiety, and then they sort of spiral at that point.
Or even when you're starting to have a conversation with someone, they can kind of see where it's going. So let's say you're performance managing someone in the probation period. They see the writings on the wall, and then they're off sick with stress and anxiety. And I don't doubt it must be incredibly anxious and difficult. But there's actually been really helpful HSE guidance that says prolonging processes creates more stress, and so you shouldn't artificially delay. You know, if you're in something like disciplinary or a performance review or similar, that holding off and being like, well, you tell us when you're well enough to deal with it, is just going to kick it into long grass and make it all worse.
But I think that's a point. Like, I remember 20 years ago when I first started, and we're dealing with a situation like this, is that the advice we were getting at the time was about actually have the conversation with the person to say, actually, the driver of your stress is this process. It will be uncomfortable to go through it, but actually it may give you resolution and allow you to move forward if we get through it.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of our belief that we're respecting someone's needs, actually it's made things more complicated with that as well.
It does. And like what someone understands, like what we get real difficulty with is in this whole test, looking at it with my employment law head on, is an adjustment has to overcome a substantial disadvantage that someone experiences as a result of a disability, which is not how I see it used. I see it used as, I have this disability, and so I want you to do these things.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually overcome any difficulty for them. And so it's just like, here is my list of demands, effectively. And it's like, okay, that's great, and we would so love to support you in this. But, you know, if you're performance managing someone, for example, and they need adjustments, implementing reasonable adjustments doesn't mean you can't manage their performance. But employees seem to try and navigate it to be like, you can't touch me.
Yeah, but I think there's a couple of things. One is that it's the person managing the process feeling brave's the wrong word, but it's kind of,
it's confrontational. There is a degree of bravery, I'd say.
But this is the thing where I always say to people, it doesn't need to be confrontational. You can still you can go in there and give it a bit of showbiz and sort of like address things and sort of say how you feel about kind of what you need to do. And it's not being sort of sickly sweet with it, but it's also saying, you know, like, because I often say to people, rather than saying that you are not doing or you are doing, say, actually, when I've experienced this, your behaviour or work in these situations, this is what I've seen and this is what I felt by it.
Yeah.
And it's a different way of using language to sort of actually make your point without making it a confrontational point. And I think because you'll get the list of demands, people just go back to a Daily Mail headline they've seen when it's gone like, one-legged, one-armed person gets $1 million.
Yeah. And
people are like, oh, well, I don't want that to be me. And that, I think because because of the wider discussion around about that space, but then we look at the ADHD stuff, we look at kind of benefit cheats, people looked in that same space, but I think the other issue with it is that we've got people who've got genuine issues who are trying to have a positive conversation, but because of the kind of maelstrom from other people, it's kind of getting lost.
Makes it really difficult to actually genuinely pinpoint with people. And it's that whole thing about HR becoming, a bureaucracy, is that people can get really tangled in this web. There isn't a way forward. Yeah. So when it's maybe confrontational is the wrong word, but it's definitely a difficult conversation because managers are being asked to be real, not experts in this, but really understand. That curiosity point that you go to is so important, because even treating two people with the same disability might have completely different adjustments that they need, different support that they might need.
If you say, so my wife's friend's got M&D, but it's not the M&D that Rob Burrow's got. It's a different type of M&D, and it's this bit where you can't have assumptions about certain things. So for me, it's the bit where you kind of go, as soon as you hear something, it's having that conversation with the person. It's like, come in, let's have a chat, you know what I mean? Let's talk about this. I think there's a bit where there's a prudishness to us at times where we don't want to pry.
100%, and that's what feels difficult. And this is kind of when we talked about feeling like you're doing the right thing by not, like, giving people a bit of leeway to come to you.
It's like, come and speak to me. You've got to get past that prudishness. Like, for years when I was in house and we'd have conversation, people go like, what's something about latest problems? And I'd be like, don't worry, I've got a wife, I've got 2 daughters, you know what I mean? I'm going to learn about this at some point. Let's learn together. But then on the other part of that, and to your point, it's that it's the jumping on it quite quickly. It's the making occupational health, because again, I think people are concerned occupational health is going to be like
stick used to beat them.
Yeah, and it's but again, it's the recommendations. They're not they're not the shopping list that you have to provide, and it's putting in their own. And actually, I'd say there's a bit of investment at the front end, depending on what issue you're dealing with.
100%. This is what we say.
And it's that if you can bring in the right occupational health therapist or kind of right medical advisor around it, get them in for half a day to come and spend the time, so that the occupational health report, make sure it's got a good job description for them.
Exactly. This is the thing people miss. This is what people miss. People go...
I've never seen you so excited.
Oh my God. People go like, I'll just go to occupational health, and then they just go talk to them. And then you get an occupational health report, which is just what the employee says. And what occupational health is designed to be good at is health in that particular occupation, understanding that role and understanding what the employee says, how that fits within that, to be able to give you tailored, appropriate advice.
But so I think there's three parts to it. There's what the person does, it's what the person's off with and experiencing, and then it's the questions you want answered. And if you invest the time in those elements,
completely different reports come back.
Yeah, and that's where we've got the benefit in the past, is that I was going to say occupational health have understood the sort of the question that we're asking, or it's landed it in such a space they've gone, can I just double check kind of actually is he kind of just make sure we've got clarity in terms of where you want to drive to, in terms of understanding what points you want to understand.
Yeah.
And I think that's massive in terms of it's making sure it's done right. And I think it's also, the other bit is actually doing something with the report as well. But
regularly as well. Like I see a lot of is people doing that, right, you've been off to occupational health, we now have our adjustments, crack on. And it's like, no, check back in, see how it's going, see what's working, see what isn't,
But it's, this is the bit where it's like, you've got to have the regular check-ins. And actually, this is the bit where, if you have got someone who is pulling your leg, it's the kill them with kindness approach. The people that, and I would say the people who've got genuine issues and actually appreciative, they'll get into a rhythm really, really quite quickly, and the experience with them is very, very different.
Yeah.
The individuals who maybe kind of don't fully understand, they've maybe got a different issue and it's being manifested through something else. I think you've got to get on top of that. And again, if you need to sort of go through performance management disciplinary process, it's not about, it doesn't prevent you from dealing with those issues.
Just factor it in.
Yeah, and it's the bit where, and this is the point with it, it's like, what are you dealing with? And then how do you put more, I'd say you make lead longer for people. Yeah.
It's showing you're working out, right? It's like GCSE maths.
Yeah.
So we had a really interesting case recently of some really horrific misconduct, like racial abuse, group chat about colleagues, badness, awfulness, like almost so retro, where it's like, really, in this day and age, we're coming back to this, but whatever. So, but one of the people who had engaged in this really horrific language use, etc., had said, well, I'm autistic and I've never mentioned it before, but my autism means that I try and fit in with people. And this only came out at appeal stage of the disciplinary process. All of them were dismissed. And I was saying to the client, I was like, it's not to say that you can't discipline a person in that situation, or that it's wrong to have reached the outcome you've reached, but as long as you can show, look, I factored in what you've told me now about this, I asked you for information, medical information, anything I could rely on, you haven't provided anything. And so I've then had to consider, is it likely to be attributable in my mind, and here's my working out, possibly, but in reality, can as a business we accept that you could do this again in those situations? No, we can't. And then also going back to the point where they'd had anti-harassment training in the last 3 months saying don't say stuff like this to people, which undermine the argument to a degree. The autism reliance came from a place of, in the absence of explicit instruction, I'll just try and fit in with people, and it's like, but you've had the explicit instruction. So
But one thing that we had a year or two ago is that we dismissed the CEO of a company. He subsequently then raised tribunal claims. He raised a claim under discrimination and under disability because of his stress and anxiety. And I'd say the client was quite frustrated with that at that point, because in fact their sense was actually because of the fact that they were paid so handsomely that actually, it kind of comes with the job, and that's part of the cause. Even at that level, if you've got someone that's raising concerns, you still need to take it seriously.
100%, but it's interesting, isn't it? Because when it comes to working time and all the rest of it, there is a law that goes like, but if you're senior, it doesn't count for you.
No. But there's all these sort of divisions in there, and this always comes back to that. If you see there's a general direction of travel with things, like, take it seriously.
Yeah.
And it's against your earlier point, it's to jump on it straight away. It's to ask questions, and it's to don't be afraid to be like, so, you've said this, just expand to me what it is that you mean on this.
And they might just say, no, I don't need anything. And then you've got a note that says, I checked in, you didn't need anything. Make the note.
Yeah. But again, but I think it's the bit where early intervention sort of trumps anything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally. Don't let things escalate. Yeah. But I still think things are going to be coming out only at appeal stages of processes. I'm such a cynic these days, but just being like, have I never told you about? And this means that I can't possibly do any of these things.
But then this is the whole point in terms of if you've asked the question, then you're okay. And again, we've started to do some work with some clients around about asking people about kind of how they understand and receive information. Once you start to onboard people about kind of, there's a whole question about how I interact with you.
Yeah.
And it's there to elicit certain things, again, without directly asking a question. It's what's happening in the business. Like how do we engage with you so that we get the best out of you in that situation? There's a whole host of things you can look at.
Yeah, but then I'm such a cynic. This is where we have such different perspectives, because I'm like, you are setting up a list to be like, you didn't react, you didn't speak to me in the way that you said you would. You've departed from the way you said you'd talk to me.
But then there's the bit where, yeah, potentially, but then there's also the bit where if you're going to take that seriously as a process, and we're only dealing with the people who take it seriously as a process.
Yeah.
That actually in the future, as long as you do it, and it's not a in-depth war and peace, but superficially kind of, how does that work? But then that allows you to say, if someone comes back and says, you never took me seriously, you go, well, actually, we had a conversation at the front end. This is what you told me, and this is how we reacted to it.
That's the main point, though. This is how we reacted to it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are like, right, we had the chat, cool.
Yeah. And it's like, but those people that do that don't tend to ask that question.
For anyone listening, we're making tick gestures with our fingers.
You were, not me. You were. It's all about you. So no, okay. So yeah, get in there early, kids.
Be curious.
Finally.
Obviously, I'm so excited to talk about this because I just love football so much.
Honestly, when I look at a dictionary definition of a football fan, is that you come armed with your England top, a sort of a garden chair, and a table to sort of overturn and throw that French riot police.
Straight in. I do actually quite like the World Cup, though.
Do you?
I am such a fair weather football fan. So, like, the fact that it's always on in the summer.
Yes.
The fact that it normally involves beer gardens and shenanigans. But other than that, I don't know that the football's on until I'm trying to get on the tram.
Yeah.
And it's full of United supporters because I'm going South Manchester.
Well, the City supporters not support.
Well, on the other side of town. So, like, I live on the tram line that goes through Old Trafford. So, it's either full of people or it's not full of people. And that's how I know there's been football. I
remember one year during the World Cup, England playing, and I had to do reports. So it was deadly quiet apart from everyone just going. So, it was amazing. The World Cup is coming. Again, shouldn't be. Again, we're not getting to kind of national pride and things like that. We're not likely to do anything. That said, we'll always have a conversation with someone to say, someone's coming late, or they've asked to watch the game. What do I need to do? I think with it being based in the US. we've got late kick-off times, and most are around about sort of 9 p.m. to sort of 10 p.m.
Although one of Scotland's first games is 2 a.m. on a Sunday. And so Scotland's given a bank holiday for the Monday.
Have they given it?
Yeah. Jesus. So watch out if you've got Scottish employees, there's an extra bank holiday.
Although I did find the fixture list yesterday, and what I found was Epping Forest. I found it through Epping Forest Council, I think it was, and they did this list of England games, and then England's potential group stage games, and it just did Scotland's group games on the assumption Scotland won't qualify at the group.
No, it's just very much like, good try.
There's a full English bias in action at that point. But what I would say is, give it as we head towards the World Cup, do give it a bit of thought about what it is that you need to do. It is if you've got some die-hard fans that are going to go and get trolleyed while they watch the match at sort of 9, 10 o'clock at night, that doesn't mean they're finishing at 11. That means they're kind of probably coming in. I think probably be more, if you're in shift workers, be more open to sort of shift swaps if you can do. We've always said, again, with shift workers, if you've got people on and you want to show the match, maybe show the match and allow people to sort of then make up the time at a point, or kind of try and build it into your schedule. Do keep an eye on sort of people mysteriously disappearing the morning after.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Any repeat offenders?
Yes. If you've got flexible working, maybe encourage people to come in and touch later. If we do particularly well and someone decides that they won't do an all-nighter. So
basically saying anticipate that this could create a bit more of an unusual couple of weeks, really.
It's a slightly different cadence to it, which I think the issue isn't on the day of the match. I think it's a day after. Yeah. Which is where I think some people will certainly fall into some traps. I mean, you'll enjoy this, but when I was in Silicon Valley, it was the World Cup, and were you in Silicon Valley? Oh, you did tell me that. And our office was filled with people from all sorts of different European countries. So, we were all working on data protection and GDPR. So it was kind of like a collective of European representatives working in America. And me and my boss were the only English people in the group. And so he would just be like, we've got a meeting with the Belgians at 10. So are you okay to come with me to that? And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. We'd go around his house and drink Yorkshire tea and have Marmite on toast and watch the football. And then go back to the office and be like, that was a really good meeting, thanks. Wow. Well, years ago, I used to work in Scotland, and during, I think it was the 2010 World Cup. Was it 2010? Oh, Euros. And they did, we had a design team on site, and they did a whole England versus Scotland World Cup chart. And basically, you have the proper one on one side. On the other side, it was us, which is everyone apart from England, and then them, which was just the England games. And it was like, I was like, okay, I take it. I'm getting the vibe here. Totally. So, but no, definitely, just preempt it again. There's not a huge amount of issues during this period of times, but the ones. Just think about it ahead of time. Yeah. So no. So that's us for this time round. So yeah, I was going to say. I take it we've had no listener queries this week. No, no. Only the feedback from Ian, who was suitably offended. But again, tough shit, Ian. Deal with it. Thanks for listening, Ian. Yeah. But no, I was going to say it's that if you've got any questions, any queries, don't hesitate to give us a shout. We're recording Wednesday, and hopefully this will be out for Friday. All being good. Lovely for the weekend. But no, it is. You can find me at horsfieldmenzies.com. You can get in contact with me at info@ezhr.uk, or ezhr.uk is our website. And yeah, just have a great one, and we'll see you soon. Enjoy the sunshine. You're joking. Not another one?